Study session on the 2018-19 budget development. Can I get roll call, Monica, please? Or can I get do I need a motion?
No. No.
Do I need to do anything other than open it for communication?
That's all.
Okay, thank you. Do I need roll call?
No.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to be down here because I'm going to be helping Eddie a little bit, so
Okay.
I'll be from,
Thank you. Thank you.
okay, we're going to get you started. And first of all, I'd say thank you for letting us be here. I'm filling in. I'm going to help Eddie. Darcy was called out on emergency. We'll do the best we can. But the purpose of the work study is to provide board members with information on how the district predicts enrollment for next year. Also, how the numbers fluctuate from school to school, and how the student numbers will affect our staffing for next year. And then the last thing we want to do is also let you look at your board goals to see if you want to make any changes to those. That would be last. So the first document I want you to look at is the long page. If you will pull that out, I'm going to be going through that. Okay, I'm going to show you the numbers. I'll wait 1 second.
Hi, Harvest. Hi, Harvest.
Tino, can you help Mr. Thomas with which form I'm going to be going over so that we're all on the same page? Are we okay? Okay, we're looking at the long page, and again, how do we determine our numbers for next year? The very first number I want you to look at is on the left-hand column, kindergarten, and it'll say the numbers for ALSA, Central, Kemp, all the schools. How do you know how many kindergartners we're going to predict? What we do is we take the 3-year average from the last 3 years, and that's how we determine how many we think are going to come in. Again, these are projections. So you can see at ALSUP, we're predicting 66, Central 82, 78 at DuPont, 79 at Kemp, 60 at Monaco, 45 at Hanson, and 65 at Rose Hill. So now we have a projection for kindergarten, and again, it was a 3-year average. Next, we move on to first grade. So again, I'm just going to be looking at the top line on ALSUP. You saw how we determined our kindergartners. Now we're going to look at first grade, second grade, third grade, and so forth. For those, it's pretty easy because what we do to predict is we just move, for example, that 75 in first grade were the kids that were in kindergarten. So we just move them up. The same thing for second grade. If you look at 81, that's how many first graders we had, and so forth. So are you clear on how we get our numbers, the predictions, kindergarten through fifth grade? Yes.
So, under kindergarten, we have 475.
Yes, that's the
First
beauty.
grade at 492,
Correct.
and then second grade 480.
Yes.
So
That would be the total. If you add them all up, that's what we're predicting.
That's what we have as
That's what
projected
for next year.
for next year,
Correct.
based on
Moving the students up.
count this year.
Right.
Is it adjusted up or down?
It's just the same. We just carry them forward. And again, it should be pretty close. Remember, these are projections, so unless a few kids leave the district or come in, so right now, we're just going with those numbers, okay? So are we all clear for kindergarten through fifth grade?
Can I ask you a question?
Yes,
So the kindergarten number is 66.
yes,
The first grade number is 75, so that's 9 difference.
right.
So are you projecting that maybe more first graders will come in and kindergarteners were here?
You lost me. So,
So if kindergarten starts at Allsup and the number is 66, the 66 kids start,
yeah,
and they stay through the year and they go to first grade. Well, that number at first grade now is 75 instead of 66.
well, that was because last year we did have 75 kindergartners.
So that's the actual number?
That's the actual numbers.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Added number.
yeah.
Okay, so the first number wasn't,
The first number is the only one that we're
Okay.
predicting from a 3-year average. All the other numbers, we're just moving up from one grade level to the other.
okay, got it.
Okay? So I just want to make sure we're all straight with kindergarten through 5th grade, how we got those numbers, correct? So then the next numbers we have to worry about would be middle school. So middle school, I want you to go down to about the middle. And can you see where it says middle school, Adams City Middle School? And Kearney? Okay, so the first thing you want to know is, the kids from Adams City Middle School, how do we get those new 6th graders? That's going to be your next column. It says 306, right? How do we get those 6th graders for Adams City Middle School? Those were the 5th graders that were at Alsop, DuPont, and Monaco. So from those students right there, those are the ones that moved up to Adams City Middle School. How do we get the numbers from Kearney? The number of 5th graders that were there came from Central, Kemp, Hanson, and Rose Hill. So 306 came from, are going to Adams City Middle School, and 286 are going to go to Kearney, and that's 592. So again, that's how many new 6th graders we're predicting are going to be there. We should be pretty close because those were our kids. Everyone still with me? And then how many kids are in 7th grade? How do we get that? We just move the 6th graders up. So that number 287 is the number of 6th graders that we had. The number of 272 in 8th grade now is the number of 7th graders from the year before. So you can see at the middle school, we're going to have 592 6th graders, 556 7th graders, and 531 8th graders. Are we clear on the middle school? Okay, now I'm going to move you to the high school. And the high school is almost the same pattern as the 5th graders moving up. Now we're going to move up our 8th graders. So as you can see, at Adams City High School, they're going to have 531 9th graders. And those kids came from the 2 middle schools, right? They came from Kearney and Adams City Middle School. So that number, again, we're going to predict are going to have 531 9th graders. And then the other numbers, we just move up. So the 9th graders last year, there were 481. They move up to 10th grade. The 10th graders, we had 383. They move up to 11th grade. And then 337, those were juniors, are going to become seniors now. The only thing that you got to be worried about is the high school. Those numbers aren't as easy to predict because remember the number of credits that they may not be true because I could be there a freshman this year and maybe not get so many credits, so I'm going to stay with the freshman class. But the numbers are going to be pretty close. So
Why does Lester Arnold have so many students? 45 freshmen, sophomores, 63 juniors, and 100 seniors. And I think it's a count of 208. How come they have so many students?
how come they have, if I'm correct, those are the students that opt to go there for one reason or another. And they can, they try to max it out as however many students they can have. I think they're maxed out right now that as many students that want to go there, they've accepted. I think they may even stopped after a certain point.
What is the maximum that they can accept? I'm just saying, why are we keep flushing students into Lester Arnold if they don't need to be there? Doesn't Lester Arnold have a criteria for a student to go there?
Yes, I think they do because it's usually kids that do not function at this Adams City High School for one reason or another. They can't handle the regular days, so they sort of like drop out, and then instead of letting them drop out, we give them an alternative, and we try to get them into the alternative school.
So if Lester Arnold alternative school, I'm just trying to figure out how many students do they have today?
Is it on here, Eddie?
So if you look all the way to the right there on that line, it kind of compares our projection for 18-19 to the current 17-18 October count. And there you'll see they were at 227 this year, and we're projecting them actually down to 208.
Well, how many the students is graduating?
I don't know, but I mean, hopefully, they're all on track. We should be getting those numbers pretty quick.
So these numbers is not even close to accurate if we guess it, right?
Their projections, they should be pretty close.
But I just asked how many students should be graduating. If you moving these 100 up to seniors, then you're moving to 63 to 45. There should be no freshmen or eighth graders there, correct?
I think they do have eighth graders. Not at Lester Arnold, but we have a program for eighth grade students.
But that's not included in here, or freshmen.
No,
So-
freshmen would be incoming, I mean, whoever's. for
So
the
I'm
next year.
trying, so what I'm asking is, you got a hyphen in there with a zero for Lester Arnold as freshmen and no eighth graders. So the question is, y'all not adding all of the students' population in for Lester Arnold at 208?
Yeah, we don't know how many incoming freshmen are gonna be there. Usually, I don't think freshmen go there. It's
I
usually,
mean, if they got freshmen there now, and you count 45 as sophomores,
they had 45 last
so
year.
what's the expectation or estimated freshmen is gonna come in the door?
Well, I would say that it's difficult to estimate how many students are gonna end up at Lester Arnold, because that's not a case where they just sort of carry forward. You know, they move into ACHS, and then they're getting moved out to Lester Arnold. So this year, I think the number of what would be there in ninth grade was something like 7 students. And I know we have 0 instead of 7. I think the 7 was more of an anomaly than what the standard is. So we're not projecting next year to have that ninth grade class filled, and then we're using historical rates to take what is that full class that is the, ninth grade as a whole, instead of splitting it between what's Lester Arnold and what's ACHS. We take the whole grade as a whole and we move it forward, and we do a percentage calculation, knowing that not every kid who's in ninth grade will move from ninth grade to 10th grade. And so there's a bit of a calculation there, and then 10th grade to 11th. And then we're just doing a split based on historical amounts to say how much will end up at Lester Arnold versus at the high school.
I think I know what you want, Mr. Thomas. Let me see if I'm correct. You really just want to know how many seniors are there right now and how many are projected to graduate. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we have to get that number.
Well, doesn't
And
it show that there's 100 seniors there right now?
No,
That's for next
those were juniors from last year. So what we
Oh,
don't have
for-
on there is how many seniors, I understand.
Oh,
what
I
Mr.
see,
Mr. Thomas
projected
wants to
for
know,
next year.
how many seniors do we have now that are going to graduate? So we have to look at the number of seniors they started with and how many we're projecting to graduate, that we'd have a good percentage.
So how did we come up with the 208? Where did we get the 208? That's for projected 18-19 head count, the 208. So, because you said the head count this year is 227, so we dropped 19. So what was the arithmetic that went into reducing the head count by 19? Going from 227 this year to 208 next year. So what was the
I think the easiest way-
calculation to come up with that reduced number?
I think the easiest way to look at that is to look at it, instead of kind of splitting it between ACHS and Lester Arnold, but to look at it just at a grade level.
Yeah.
Because then we're just sort of splitting it historically, how much of that grade has gone to Lester Arnold compared to the high school. So we're moving forward a grade level from one to the next. So if I'm saying, trying to figure out what is grade level 12, I'm taking 11 and I'm moving it forward, and I'm saying somewhere around the neighborhood of 7 or 8% of that class won't move forward. And then I'm taking an amount and saying, well, that total class is down. And the amount that was over there last year was approximately 100 and something, and I don't have that number in front of me, but so this year I would project 100, but in total, that is a more exact number for that grade because it's been calculated at a historic rate of how many kids move forward from 11th to 12th. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I follow you.
And I think we probably need to do two things here. I'm sorry, Mr. Thomas, but I think, very important, Ed, we have to get the number of seniors. I know you want that. I saw that there were no freshmen, but I think that if we follow the same format that we did with kindergarten, if we took like, how many freshmen did we have this? Last year, they had 45. How many did we have the year before? How many did we have the year before? And do a 3-year average, we should be able to put a number in there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because there's no number in there, that's what I'm
Right.
asking.
Do you see what I
So the, so the 208 is not gonna be correct.
Right.
And the 19 is not gonna be correct. It's gonna be more. If you're going with an average, or even if you do an average of 3 years, you might get, they might, because you're not gonna take, you're taking 531 freshmen to the high school. Not all of those 531 freshmen might go to Adams City High School.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree if you're saying the split between Adams City High School and Lester Arnold could be off. Where, you know, in the example I was speaking about is this year, I believe that number is somewhere around 7 students. So those students would move from the Adams City High School number, 531, down, just down. So could that be the case? Yeah, I think that could be the case, and we could, you know, go about adjusting that as Dr. Brago had suggested. I think we just projected that to be 0 and put the whole amount into Adams City High School.
Could I ask a question, a much bigger, broader question? And I understand these aren't, you know, locked in, and they're estimates and they can change and so forth, but just overall, the district is going to be down 131 students. Now, you know, it may fluctuate, but, you know, my question is, you know, is the district shrinking?
I think that was the second part. If you look at the pupil counts, the projected 18-19 head count versus the 217, he can explain that for you with the different.
I didn't, where are you looking?
So if you go ahead and you can bring out your second page. Should look like this, and
Okay.
right, and what Dr. Abrego is saying is that the numbers on the top, the numbers you're going to see on the top of this sheet actually come from the far right-hand side of that long sheet. So for example, if you look at the total elementary line on the long sheet, and you go to the far right, it's going to first.
108, yeah, okay.
Did you see that?
Yeah,
How those
60.
numbers are matching? So it's,
65,
for example, it gives you the 17-18 head count in elementary is 3,176. And then the projection is 3,068, and that is a decrease of 108. And, you know,
I'm still asking, you know, is that reflecting a shrinking district or something else going on in the district? You know,
Yeah,
the
I
fact
think
that
the
we're
short
coming up
answer-
with, you
I think-
know, 130 fewer students projected for next year, is that reflective of what's happening to the population in Adams 14 or something else?
I have not looked at it in that light to say, you know, the underlying cause of the actual decrease that you're talking about. I have a couple different theories, and I don't know which one is right. So I wouldn't want to throw that guess out there. I do feel like, you know, we can do some things to try to determine if we think this projection is accurate. And, you know, one of the ways that I would do something like that as an auditor is you would kind of do a reasonableness test. And in this case, one way to look at that is if you take your elementary schools and you say, you know, about your incoming class in kindergarten is 475. Your outgoing class is 592. So you're looking at, that loss of that about 108 there too as well. And, those are more concrete historical numbers. That class coming in is about that, and the class going out is about that. So, when I'm looking at the elementary school level, that looks like a reasonable change. And at the middle school level, I'm seeing, the actual number in 17-18 was 1,616 students, and we're projecting 1,679, and that's actually an increase of 63 at the middle school level. And when I look at the way the incoming classes are there, I see in of 592 and out of 531, so a bigger incoming class, smaller outgoing class. It makes sense that that number's going up. And at the high school, you're seeing a similar thing there where the actual number right now is 2025. We're projecting 1,940, and that's a decrease of 85. So there, that trick of the incoming class and outgoing class doesn't work as well, because we have that, rate where as each grade progresses, it decreases. But what we did do is we have gone back and looked at that percentage decrease by year, and the percentage decrease by year we're using right now is equal to about the 5-year average of that decrease. So, could those numbers be slightly higher or slightly lower? Yeah, it could. We're using an average. It's a projection. But, to your point, in total, we're projecting the decrease of 130. And, from that point, the next question when I'm looking at the budget is, what does that mean? What is that going to mean for our funding, and what is that going to mean for the way we're staffing buildings? And, that's what this middle section there on that second sheet talks about, is that change in the funded pupil count. So the funded pupil count uses a 5-year average itself, and it also is going to include the pre-K. So we've been talking about just K through 12. So you're going to have to add in the pre-K class. And when you look at it in that funded pupil count way, the decrease there in our actual funding is just going to be 46.9 funded kids. And you can do some back of the napkin math with that and say, average funding per kid is 8,000 times 46.9. That's a decrease of something like 375,000. That's all rough and estimate, but to give you an idea of what that might mean as far as our funding. So from this point, once we had the projections, in this form, what we did is we put them into a staffing formula that we've been using for the last several years. We didn't have this concrete of a formula before this, so we felt this was a good formula and a way to move forward. The formula we have now adjusts for if the school has at-risk kids, the number of at-risk kids that they have. It adjusts for whether or not that school is in priority improvement. It adjusts for if you're a small school, you'll get a bigger allocation of staffing. But the general meat of the calculation is taking the number of kids that you have and multiplying it by a certain, one per however many, and you get a teacher. And we didn't want to go into that specific formula here, but what happens is it then provides an allocation of teachers to each school. And we've then met with the schools and we've went over, compared to last year, how is your allocation of staffing looking and how are you going to be able to adjust? And that's what the bottom section of this second page is showing you. So for example, ALSUP is looking at a decrease in staffing of, and the sheet that you have is updated because the one that was provided on Friday was comparing numbers out of our system to this formula, and I've gone back and I've adjusted what you're seeing so that you're now seeing the numbers out of the formula this year compared to the numbers out of the formula last year. And that's had a very small impact on how those numbers look, but I wanted you to know the stuff you're looking at there is slightly different. So ALSUP is showing a decrease of about 1.4, and you can see, what you're seeing there, like the biggest one being the high school at about 3, and the total change being 3.86 across the district. And this is, basically a direct result of this decreased projection of the 130 students. So from this point, kind of where we're at, we met with all of the schools, and we went over their staffing plan, and we've asked them to adjust to this calculation. And we've gone over their supplies and materials budgets, which is also based on this pupil count. We prepared the second quarter financials, and I think you would have received that in your email, and that had a projection of where we think the fund balance will be at the end of this year. And that was, that's showing like a 1.1 million increase to that fund balance right now, and that's all, tentative in a projection itself, but we're working on developing other budgets from this point, so things like the utilities budget, the special education budget, the preschool budget, looking at the department supplies and materials budgets. We're trying to coordinate the budgets within grants, so there you're talking about things like the READ Act, things like ELPA, Title I. How are those things going to work with the staffing and materials budgets we already have? And we're having, I think in this meeting, the next part of the discussion is on the board budget goals, and, we're going to be looking to those budget goals to say, how can we adjust the budget we have now as it's moving forward? And I'll give you one other piece of news that I heard relative to the budget. One piece that goes into the state, we don't have that state funding amount yet because that legislation hasn't passed yet, but the session will end by May 9th, and we'll have it before then, but maybe not much, I don't know. I do know that in the formula as it is now, it includes a calculation that gets adjusted by the Denver Boulder Greeley CPI, so like an inflation measure. And right now that number is up 3.4%. And, we've also seen the governor's budget, and, looking at that had, and I think you heard Dominic Moreno also give you, positive news there. And I see all of those things happening and reasons to be hopeful that those numbers will come in good. And the last thing I would say is that, we are excited to have a new executive director of budget and finance who will be joining next week, and he'll be helping us continue to work through this process.
Where in the whole process does the board have an input into next year's budget?
Well, I think the easy answer to that is, they do approve the budget, but, in providing, these goals here, I think, that is input.
Well, this seems like a review on the revenue side, and when it comes time in terms of, putting together a tentative budget for expenditures, does the board play a role in making suggestions or not?
Really, I think the process that he was explaining is how our budget is going to be determined. They're going to go to every single school. They're going to figure out from the enrollment how many teachers there are. 70% of our budget is going to be salaries and insurance for all the staff. So that's whatever money we have, that's 70% is already gone. Where you do have input, where Ed said is if you would want to look at your goals for a minute, and Connie, Miss Quintana, you have the book. So if you look at the book on page 19, that thick book that you have, that's where, if you look at page 19, the last part that you should be doing as a board is you're going to develop your goals. Now, the budget goals, the paper that you have for 217 and 218, that's already in that book for this year. Now, next year, we're projecting our budget, right? So if you want to change anything, as a board, you have a right to do that. And then once you agree, you look at your goals, and I think you have 3 sets of goals. You're going to have education goals, and those look pretty good to me. I mean, they're your goals, so.
But, I'm not to cut you off, but these goals is for 17, 18.
Right.
So you haven't gave us nothing in writing that said if we met those goals, did we come close to these goals? What is the percentage of these goals? You haven't. We gave the goals.
Those are
so
your
this
goals.
is 17, 18. So I'm trying to figure out where in writing to move the district from being accredited with turnaround plan to accredited with distinction by increasing the district performance framework performance. It was 32.3, earning a minimum of 74 points. Where are we at?
Okay, again, these are your goals, so our goal is, like Mr. Thomas said, to move the district from being accredited turnaround to accredited with distinction. Now, I think that's the board's goals, but remember, we also have goals that you gave me as a superintendent to move the district up out of priority improvement. So where are we right now? In 216, we had 32.5 points, and that was not good. 217, we moved up to 37.6 points. Now, you don't have those. I looked them up for you. So we went up from 32.5 in 216, we moved up to 37.6, and that put us out of the turnaround into priority improvement. In 218, our goal is to have 44 points, and that's from my end, the superintendent goals. Those aren't the board goals. So in order to get there, we need 6.4 more points, and if we get those points, we will move out of priority improvement to improvement, and that's the goal that you set for me, for the superintendent. But for you, you're moving up little by little, so to get to distinction, that's a lot more points. And I think our plan said we were going to get to distinction by, I want to say 2019, 2020. So we want to keep moving up.
Because if I'm not mistaken, the revised packet that you sent to the CDE said that we'll be in all the schools will be in improvement status.
Right. That's the goal that you gave the superintendent, move all the schools up. And my biggest goal is to move the district out of priority improvement to improvement, and also the high school. I think those are the 2 big goals for us.
Because for the last year and this year, as far as budget-wise, what you done gave us each time is cutting teachers and cutting staff. And I haven't seen, you haven't brought to this, give us this, but what are we doing as far as expenditures, like Mr. Ice say? Where's that at in writing? Where's the projection of cuts, say, in the ESS building? Or what are we doing to cut, to offset the teachers, losing five teachers almost? Where's the offset of other budget cuts in the district? Besides, you give us just teachers, pupil, okay? Where's the other, the operation and maintenance? Where's that budget to saying we're gonna cut stuff and start at? Where's that at?
Okay, and I guess maybe Eddie didn't explain, but the same thing he's doing with the schools as far as enrollment, then they have to go into the various departments and do the same thing too. And they have to determine their budgets, you know, whatever they had last year and then what they're gonna need for this year. And they have a start amount because whatever they had this year is pretty much rolls over. But I don't know if we're quite clear on what this is. This is for you, though. These are your goals, and I think they're, like I said, some of them are pretty good. We want 100% of the students to graduate. I think the ones you really have to look at, Mr. Thomas, if you're talking about how we want to spend our money and how Dr. Hyde said, input, you see what you had here in the past, and that's really how we're spending our money. You're guiding the finance department, saying this is where our priorities are, this is where we want to concentrate some of our funds. So I think the first one, staffing was reduced in order to align the district's revenue with expenditures with the focus on maintaining district staffing rates at each grade level. Again, you created these. These are your goals, but what you may want to put as a goal, and again, I'm not telling you how to do it, but the schools that are in turnaround, like you did this year, the high schools in turnaround, and you gave them additional teachers because that's what you felt was going to help them get out of turnaround. So those are goals that you can have and you can measure, and not just the high school, but like I believe Rose Hill is in turnaround, and you have a right to do that. If you feel they should get additional teachers to help them get out of that bottom level, you can. And then again, another thing you may, again, these are yours, like how much do you want? I think one of our big emphasis here is we're trying to get more kids to graduate with the seal of biliteracy. How can you do that? You know, that could be one of your goals. I personally asked the high school to shoot for 100. I don't know if they can get that, but if you as a board say the seal of biliteracy is very important to us, we want to put funds toward that to help kids get that, you can create that goal yourselves and measure it. And you can see, like, we went from 34 to, I think this year, we got 35 already. We're trying to get 70, but those are goals you could set and you can measure yourselves. And again, is that important to you? And I think it is, because we're one of the leaders in the seal of biliteracy, so that would be good for the high school to help them. How do you help them with your expenditures for them to get more kids earn the seal of biliteracy? So that's where you come in with your helping guide finance department on how to spend their monies, specifically on those bottom goals, expenditure goals.
And Mr. Chairman, for clarification, when in the process do we, as a board, get together to talk about ideas that we have for, writing up the goals and so forth for next year?
Well, this needs to happen here for us here pretty quick, okay? So our goals need to be set here. We can do it now, we can do it, but we'll have time to do this. So what normally happens is we get the budget presented to us, and we ask our questions at that point in time. Why is this that way, this, that, blah, da, 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 da. All of those questions, but we can, like Dr. J is saying, these were our goals, this budget for
For this
2017,
year.
18.
For
Yes.
this year.
Yeah, so we
Yeah,
have
and-
to make new goals for 18, 19.
Right. I mean, because I see the way this meeting right now seems to be unfolding is it's something of a debriefing from the staff to the board, which is cool, and I appreciate it, want it. But I would like an opportunity for the board to also discuss whatever ideas we may have that we want to inject into the planning for next year's budget.
Right.
And I don't see this afternoon being the right moment for that.
Right, it's not the right moment
So
for that.
when is the right moment?
When we have our budget study session, the actual budget study session, when is that planned for, Eddie? Do you have any idea?
And I think you have a calendar that sort of spells it out for you in that book too.
Well, I have in this same book here, okay? I have it for, and I assume from year to year, it's not gonna vary wildly, but I'm looking at the this is for the current year, but we're really talking about next year. And it shows in February, for the 28th, Board of Education meeting, review board budget goals, and then there's a study session, and then in March, there's a board, a budget update. But it's hard to tell from this, when we, have input into your planning process. And it seems to me it's got to be fairly early on, because we're not trying to throw a wrench into the works, on the last day or something. We're trying to get it, I think the proper way for it to go is we should be proactive and get our suggestions or ideas to you early on, so that they can, be assimilated and so forth.
Well,
I'm just trying to find out what kind of the timeline is, or the
Right.
process for us to
Right.
do that.
And, there is an updated schedule out, which it looks pretty much the same as the one you're
This
looking
one
at.
here?
Right, and I think, the intent of this meeting was to start that discussion, and then let the board, from this point, forward, kind of carry that. So you could determine at this point, when you would want to meet to discuss your goals and input you want to give, and I would
We
agree
need
with.
y'all goals first. You want our goals, we need y'all goals. We need y'all numbers before we can do anything. That's what he asking. We want to see what y'all trying to get to us so we can go over it. Because I'm sitting here listening to Dr. Brago say one of our goals should be biliteracy. But if I'm reading this correct, which you submitted to the CDE on page 42, it says the biliteracy classrooms at all schools will continue to follow the required programming. All teachers will continue to receive professional development. And this is here. So we don't have to make that a goal if it's already supposed to be going to the CDE, which you submitted submitted on June 6th. So we shouldn't have to sit here and redo biliteracy. That's already determined through the CDE that we should have that every year. That should not be one of our goals.
I think I'm a little lost. We do have the plan that we submitted to the state. You don't have to tweak that. This is, again, I'm just trying to steer you to the bottom goals, expenditure goals, how you want to spend your money. That's basically it. You're going to tell the finance department, these are the things that we feel are important. This is where we feel money should be spent.
Right, but you said we should make the biliteracy a goal.
No, I said
On
I said
page
the seal of biliteracy.
Well, biliteracy, right?
No,
Is
the
that
two-
different?
Well, the seal of biliteracy is you get that on your diploma when you graduate as a senior.
Right, and you submitted that to the CDE too.
Right.
That we will continue the seal biliteracy program. So we shouldn't have to put money into that program if it's already continuing.
Well, I'm just saying if you wanted to grow, we had 34, we're trying to get 70, and then we're going to try to get 100. How do you get to that 100 or even more? It's you have to make it a goal to put money there to accomplish that. But these are your goals. Again, it's the board's goals that you want to give to the finance department. You just, like Dr. Hyde said, you take time, meet consensus, and you can change this for next year in the book. Did I answer your question, Mr. Thomas?
Because you submitted 120 pages to the CDE, and I've been going over it. And a lot of things that we haven't been doing in this district, that's not applied what we haven't been doing with the CDE and this board. Because the things you submitted to them, we're not doing in the district. And I'm not gonna,
You're saying the things we submitted in our turnaround plan we're not doing?
that is correct.
I think you need to have an update from the Colorado Department of Education, which I think we're going to do tomorrow with Lisa Miller, and you can tell her because, Mr. Thomas, if we're not doing those things, we're out of compliance, but she meets with us every Friday, and,
Are
we're
we doing this right there?
just by the by.
So we're talking specifically about the beyond textbooks progress in student performance.
That's one of them.
That's one of the deals you've submitted.
Are you talking about this page, or, okay, I don't have that document. You're talking about the turnaround plan?
Yes.
I don't have that in front of me, Mr.
And that's what I'm saying. When Ms. Mettler stood in front of us and said the data was not presented to her on time, I went and started reading the turnaround plan that was submitted.
Mhm.
It was 120 pages.
Yes.
And I just asked you that, you said we are complying with everything on there. We are not. One of the things we're not complying with, once a month, the Board of Education, which is us, supposed to get an update on the beyond textbook and student implementation once a month in person. That's
From-
not happened.
Okay,
And that
well,
was submitted to the CDE. There's a whole bunch of things in that packet that we are not doing in this district. And that's what I'm saying.
okay,
So let me ask you a
but-
question. The presentation by Matt about beyond textbooks, is that what he's talking about?
Yes.
So Matt presented to us the last couple of board meetings ago,
okay,
but it doesn't happen on a monthly basis, is what he's saying.
okay, and we can do that. I mean, you got me a little bit confused here because we're talking about budget, and then all of a sudden you're crossing over into turnaround plan, and
But the budget is part of the turnaround plan.
well,
If you submitted the turnaround plan to the CDE, our budget should correspond with it together. But you're giving us goals to do for the budget. Where's the turnaround plan at? So we as a board and the district can go by it, just like this. On the agenda, page 118, today, agenda, Adams City organization chart. Do we have all this in the organization? We finna move, can't say no names, but we have, what is the dean. If you move the dean, does that mean are we still gonna have 4 deans at the high school that's working with the students?
I don't know,
I'm sorry, Ms. Quintana?
That doesn't, right now, we're talking about the projected
This is
budget.
the budget.
That is a plan.
Personnel, the personnel plan he gave us, we talking about personnel. We talking about personnel, right? Ain't
I'm
that
tr-
budget talk? Is that budget, personnel?
I don't know, we're crossing over, but may I make a suggestion? And I do understand, Mr. Thomas, that Ms. Lisa Miller gave you an update. I believe she's going to be here again today. And it's important because what you heard from her and some of those things that hadn't been done, they were projected to be done the following day. I think she talked to you on a Thursday. On Friday, she met with the high school staff, and they took care of a lot of those things. And she's going to come in today, and she can give you an update on where we're at with the plan. But again, the plan is a written document. We try our best to implement it. We do have the budget to cover everything we're doing in there, so she's probably the best to give you the update on where we're at.
Yeah, and you weren't at the meeting we went to a meeting with Lisa and the school, and I asked Lisa, based on your comment at the board meeting that we weren't meeting our turnaround plan, got us a little bit excited about we need to make it happen right now. So we had that meeting. You remember we had that meeting? And then Lisa came in, and she met with the school, and she said, I need this, and that in writing, which she said, if she can get that, then that would put us back on track to be on our turnaround plan. And she's coming tonight to give us an update based
Right.
on that conversation that we had 2 weeks ago.
And I think if I'm correct, you're going to spend about 2 hours with her tomorrow too, so that's where you want to ask all the questions as far as turnaround plan to see where we're at. Because she's the one that meets with us every Friday. She'll let you know exactly where we're on target. And what-
She has to meet with you, because that's in the turnaround plan. That's the agreement y'all did with the CDE.
Mhm.
But there's things in that turnaround plan, as a district, we are not complying with. as a district, we are not complying with.
And she's gonna update us on that.
And whatever we're not, I mean, whatever we're out of compliance, we gotta fix it and we gotta do it, so.
So she's gonna meet with us tomorrow and tonight. She's gonna meet with us tonight. We'll meet with the board tonight, and then tomorrow during our session, she's coming in for a couple of hours to give us an update on where we're at exactly with the turnaround. And that'll be tomorrow.
Okay, and again, I'm trying to help Eddie, but the key thing is, if you want to change those goals, you have a right to change those goals. You meet as a team, let him know whatever change you want to do here, and then he can put them into the book for next year.
I'd like to ask a totally different question. On this board budget goals for this year, under expenditure goals, number 1, it says the district tries to keep a focus of maintaining district's staffing ratios at each grade level. Now, I know there must be a lot of anomalies from school to school, but when I was going through whatever this is, this thing here, the adopted budget for this year, a real standout for me was what's going on at Hanson Elementary in terms of the relationship between enrollment and total staffing. And there, the enrollment has gone up substantially over the last 4 years, but the total staffing, the certified staffing has dropped by a bit. And I wondered, and in some of the other schools, the same pattern hasn't followed. And is that just an anomaly, or is there something that explains that?
You want to take it?
I would imagine it's a bit of an anomaly. I mean, I would look back to, the factors we were discussing earlier where, it could be your at-risk student count. It could be, as the school moves between priority improvement, and it could be, that allocation of the small school allocation. That's the only school that gets that. So this year, though, that anomaly appears to not be sort of carrying forward, and you're talking about Hanson, right?
Yeah,
So-
Hanson.
So they're seeing an increase of 1.2 this year.
Well, I mean, look, from this is on page 92. I wish we're in the community room because we'd have a whiteboard and we could
Yeah.
put numbers up and everybody
Yeah.
could see the same data. But essentially, from 2013 to 2017, they've gained about 65 students, so that's like, 2 or 3 full classrooms. And yet, at that same time, the certified staff dropped from 28 to 25 and a half, which seems like it's going in the wrong direction.
Right, and I would say that's probably a result of those other factors. So, for example, this year, what you're seeing is their projection is actually pretty flat. We're saying 241 to 242, it's about the same. But when you look at the effect on their staffing this year, they're adding 1.2
That's part of our fault, too. We should make,
teachers or teacher equivalents.
start saying,
So that's on, if you look at the bottom of that, the second page there that just has the pluses and minuses by school, you'll see Hanson is at a 1.2 increase when actually their enrollment is flat. And it's because they're moving between to priority improvement.
So is there a lag generally in the formulas you use? Is there
No,
is it a
I
moving
think-
average that's lagged?
No, it's just that the enrollment itself is not the only factor going into the way we're allocating staffing to schools. It's that we also are allocating staffing, if you're on priority improvement, we're allocating it based on that current year's at-risk student count, and then we're adjusting.
The one that
Right.
That staff
Which is
situation,
right.
so then we have to,
Ms. Bates,
That's,
the thing that you say, if we hire the best of the best,
sure.
these things should be done. If we don't micromanage, these things should be done. So now, when we bring it up, it's making,
And that's a good point. And if I could look at the page you're actually referencing, I could try and tell you if that's causing any of that, because the numbers I've been presenting tonight are, are just general fund and are not grant-related staffing. So that's a good point. We call this the sort of above-the-line staffing, where it's more movable by the school itself, and the grant staffing, is put onto a grant budget and a grant plan, which is then submitted to CDE, and they approve, and it's much harder to move that staffing around. But would you like me to look at that page?
Sure, yeah. And I think Ms. Avina's may be right on target, because it shows
Oh, they may not
28,
have.
28, 28 for these 3 years.
they submitted to the city.
It just drops.
All these positions filled.
Yeah, and that's just like the little girl says, they don't have a counselor. What do they say?
And I just, as I
They
looked
move one
across the
counselor, transfer
schools,
over
that
to
seemed to
lesser,
be
or did they replace
outlier.
So,
So I was wondering, okay.
that sheet there, I think though, is referencing just general fund staffing as opposed to grant related staffing. But what may be causing that is the move to the staffing formula that we were discussing, which, before we had a formula, it was very sort of haphazard in the way staffing was assigned. So, you'd meet and people would say, yeah, I need teachers, and the squeaky wheel got the oil, or, well, if that's the right saying,
So
something like
you're
that.
trying, over time, you hope to standardize the ratio between or the enrollment and,
We have,
faculty,
we
staff.
have in that we moved to make it use a formula as opposed to that haphazard approach. So you could look at the formula and evaluate, do we like that? But, at this point, we've moved forward with the formula as we had it.
I'd like to just, under the Division of Human Resources, and again, I'm sure there's an explanation, but it shows that 6 people under general staffing receive over $1 million, which works out to $172,000 per person. What's going on there?
Yeah, that doesn't sound like anything we've ever done, so let me take a look at that page and
Want to
see
take
if
a
I
look
can.
at this? Yeah, sorry to keep doing this to you, but see, right here. There's 6 people, and those are their salaries. Does it ring a bell or anything?
No, I would want to look into that a little bit farther and try to get back to you with
Okay, I
a written
appreciate it.
analysis of that.
I mean, it just jumped off the page at me.
Yeah, sure, no, I understand that.
Thanks.
I think that's all we have, Mr. Archuleta, and I may have made an error. I asked Ms. Burgos if Lisa Meadows going to be here today. She said maybe tomorrow. She has a meeting with our governing board for about an hour or two. So if she's not here today, it's for tomorrow. You can ask her the questions on the turnaround plan.
Well, when I had conversation with her, she said she was gonna try to make it tonight.
Okay,
She
good.
may be here.
I just don't want to say the wrong thing.
Tomorrow's meeting is at the high school. Is it at 10?
No, our meeting, we have a.
That's your
we have
meeting.
our-
No, when, the Lisa Medler
It's here.
briefing? Oh, it's in the afternoon. Because I thought you said tomorrow, not Friday. But Fridays, is there a meeting Friday with,
That's,
yes. And is that 10 a.m.?
With Lisa?
no,
Do you have a meeting with Lisa on Friday?
every Friday, yeah, we meet her about 9 o'clock.
And that's at the high school?
No, we always meet with her here
Here.
at
Oh,
the ESS.
okay. Because I thought last Friday it was at the.
She had
high
a
school.
planned meeting with the high school that Friday. Remember, on the date I said, had we waited another day, they would have given her the
Okay,
information.
but normally it's here at
Yeah,
10 on Friday.
On Friday, she will come here and meet with
Okay,
the
thanks.
chief academic officer. That's
Thank you.
all we have,
Any
Mr.
other
Archuleta.
questions about the budget? Thank you, Eddie. Thank you, Dr. Bragle. So before we move into regular session, let's have a little bit of a break. We start at 6:30, so we got about 15 minutes.